Welcome to episode 2 of Treasury Legends. I'm very pleased today to be joined by a couple of colleagues here from Trovata, and as you describe them, probably as much friends as colleagues. One of the things that you'll realize is that Treasury is such a small world. People always talk about 4 degrees of separation, but I think within the Treasury world, it's more like a half a degree. Everybody knows everybody. It's a small world. We have one big annual conference every year where everybody gets together and meets each other. So I've known Yussuf and Keith for an awful long time. And Yussuf more so, where we've worked together in the past, and Keith I've competed with in several instances over the years as well in different companies. But both been around for an awful long time, really domain experts, and understand the ins and outs of Treasury. One of the things we're going to talk about today is kind of a story about how we all ended up in Treasury. It's one common thing that you find when talking to anybody is that nobody ever decided to be in Treasury when they were in college or school. And in fact, if you went there to a college and said, what would you like to do when you leave? I guarantee that nobody would say, I want to join a corporate treasury department and do treasury stuff, because nobody ever does. And nobody really teaches it. And so for the most part, people end up in Treasury by accident. But then once you found your way into Treasury, it's very difficult to leave. And that's not a Hotel California kind of not wanting to leave. It's more you're here by choice. And, it's an exciting role. It's the lifeblood of any company where you're managing the cash, the liquidity, the debt, the risk, etc. So it really is an incredible area to be in within finance, kind of a microcosm. And Keith, Yussuf and myself have found our way into the technology side of it after being practitioners and working in a treasury role. And it's something that we've just stuck around for an awful long time. I dread to put the number of years of experience that we all have together here.
A lot of gray, Paul. A lot of
Yeah,
gray.
I love to agree. Yeah, that's right. Mine's mostly around here, but it's been stressful at times, but it's been incredible fun as well. And I think one of the things we see with the changes in technology, it's been phenomenal, and more changes are coming. And what we're trying to do here at Trovata is be at the forefront of those changes and actually really impact the market. So why don't I hand over to you first, Yussuf? Do a quick introduction of yourself and tell us how you got into Treasury.
Yeah, so Yussuf Ali here. Again, I was sort of reflecting back on how I got into Treasury. So I think I remember in Denmark, there was this newspaper that every year did this annual stock trading game. And I was looking and said, oh my goodness, I could win like $10,000 there. All I had to do is just figure out which companies to buy. And that was around the time I was learning Visual Basic in Excel. I was like, wait a minute, if I can combine this with that and I can do some algorithm, could get $10,000. So I started sort of building something in Excel there for myself. And then eventually I got more and more pulled into that. And then when I started my bachelor degree in economics, there was this paid intern gig at a big telecom in Denmark. And I applied for that and I got in there. I didn't know what they had lined up for me. So they were very advanced. They were building, essentially, it was in 98. So they were building value at risk that JP Morgan came out with in 94. And they were building that because, again, they had to manage all these things. And it was in Excel, it was very slow. And I was like, yeah, I can certainly move that over to Access. And it was a massive project. But eventually I got into that and I got just bitten by that bug, with the financial market, the coding and all of that. So that's how I got into it. And I've been there since 97, 98.
Wow. And Visual Basic, that was the cutting edge at the time. Yeah, I've gone through quite a few iterations then, but the key question there is, did you win the $10,000?
No, because I was then when I then got the job at the telecom, I was talking to these people that have been in this space for a while, and it was like my strategy. And I was talking to them and say, well, I think you have to be much more aggressive if you would actually want to win this. It's not about diversifying your portfolio. It's about just going all in. Like, oh well, maybe I need to understand this market a little bit better. So I actually didn't participate, but it's still there. I think so. One day when I get some time, I'll probably see what I can do there.
Yeah.
Yussuf, it's funny. I've known you for 20 years and I didn't know any of that about you. I think that's a great story.
Yeah, me neither. And just a factoid. I mean, you're Danish, and when did you move to the US?
So I moved to the US in 2012. So I've lived in a few countries now. So I lived in Sweden for a couple of years, lived in London for, I would say, 7 years. And then after that, I actually moved to the US here, moved to the East Coast in New York.
Nice.
We dragged him kicking and screaming, if I remember correctly. But it was a great move on our part, that's for sure.
Yeah, and here he is, still here.
That's it.
Exactly.
So
Now
that's great.
he's a legend. Now he's
Yes, exactly. At least on our podcast, anyway. And how about you, Keith? How did you end up in Treasury?
Yeah, so back, and this is kind of early '90s. All my friends were getting out of school and getting out of college. Everybody kind of went their separate way, and had an opportunity to meet a friend at a baseball game one day. And I was like, hey, what have you been up to? Where you working? And he's like, oh, I'm at, and just this will date the conversation in and of itself. He's like, I'm at Manufacturers Hanover Bank, and so that just instantly, right? It's just like, oh, that's a long time ago. He's like, yeah, I'm sitting next to the futures group, and this is kind of what I'm doing. And he's like, do you know anything about futures? And I'm like, I have absolutely no idea about futures. But I was like, it sounds really interesting. So, kind of went to, and again, this is going to date myself, went to the public library, picked out some books that was about futures, learned about commodity trading and currencies and commodities and interest rates and all these other things. I already had a fairly decent hold on equities and things like that, and was kind of hooked with the whole idea of it all. The problem was I had actually no money. What I didn't say about how I got to the baseball game, this goes back at a time where you could get a baseball ticket by donating blood. So that's ultimately how we ended up at this baseball game, was donating blood. So kind of got a bug for it, and then really just started to figure out what I had to learn in order to have a job that could do this, because I knew I couldn't afford to do this stuff with my own money because I didn't have any, back at the time. So I found a bunch of, cut out a bunch of really, really specific job descriptions in the newspaper and started building my resume around trying to learn these skills, and had an opportunity at a transportation company in South Jersey that was looking to start up a treasury department, and basically went in there, and they're like, I don't know why you actually went in for this job. You have no experience at all, but you're saying you can do all this, prove it. So I basically did. I outlined the strategy for cash management, for managing currencies, and this was pre-euro. So they had 10 different currencies. They had all these ships. They had commodities, hedging that they did because of bunker fuel and things like that. And I got done with it and aced it, having absolutely no experience with it. So
Nice.
just got the bug all through that. So apologies for the long story though.
That's cool. And so to get your first job, did you have to sell a lung as well, or did you just drew the line at blood?
Yeah, strictly just blood and hopes and prayers at that point.
It's kind of funny because obviously Treasury is the lifeblood. Cash is the lifeblood of every organization. So you got into it by selling blood, and ended up in the profession. So that's kind of pretty cool. I mean, from my perspective, I started as a graduate finance trainee in the UK, and that was when they were privatizing the electricity industry, and they were splitting off what was the CEGB, the Central Electricity Generating Board. I got a job as a finance trainee. I did that, training to be an accountant, and I immediately thought, wow, this is unbelievably boring, but it seems to pay fairly well, so I might as well stay in it. And then somebody asked me, hey, look, we're setting up a spin-off of another part of the company for the nuclear division, and would you like to go and help set up the Treasury Department? And I said, what's that? And they said, more money. And I said, when do I start? And they said, Monday. And so I said, where is it to start with? I was living in Gloucester in the UK, and they said it's in London. So I got in my car, put my stuff in it, and then lived in my car for 3 days till I found somewhere to live. And that's how I got into Treasury. We stood up a Treasury department. And I remember being absolutely fascinated, the fact that I had no idea what I was doing with Treasury, and I was investing up to £600 million a day with the Bank of America National Loans Fund. And occasionally somebody would forget to call through the deal, and then we would lose out on interest of around about $100 million, but nobody seemed to care. And I thought, wow, there's got to be a better way of doing this. And anyway, so that's how I ended up in Treasury as well, and purely by accident. But that was back in 1990, so going way back. So, Keith, why have you stayed in Treasury? Why have you stayed in the profession for so long?
I think through my career, I've kind of gone back and forth between kind of managing corporate treasury, managing risk, working capital, et cetera, whether it's treasury, AP, AR, starting up treasury departments, et cetera, and then going back over to the fintech side, whether it be, again, treasury, AP, AR, et cetera. I think I love the diversity of it all. I love how it all is extremely interconnected. It's different every single day. I think one of the things that I really like about having moved over to the fintech side versus the pure corporate side is the ability to see a lot of different landscapes and see way a lot of really smart people tackle really complex problems, and it's just different all the time. And I think to me that's just one of the things. I can't imagine doing anything any different. I just love just having simple conversations like this, which is really what the best meetings ultimately are, is having conversations like this with treasury teams and pretty much at every level. And the same thing even on the controller side, right? Just figuring out problems, things like that. And it's problem solving. Anything with finance, I think is just finance, math, et cetera. I think is just naturally interesting, but just how interconnected it is and how different it is everywhere. But at the same time, it's still the same. It just, it's just that the cycles may be a little bit different.
It's very cool because it's a single-stranded profession in terms of treasury. Everybody knows cash management, credit facilities, debt, investment, but there is no cookie-cutter treasury.
Yeah.
And every treasurer has different challenges and different tweaks that you have to manage. And so it's very, very interesting. It was down at a client yesterday, one of our larger clients that used the treasury functionality. And she mentioned that they had a session where they trained a whole bunch of other people within the company on what treasury did, because people usually say, what do you do in treasury? And then told, kind of educated them on what they did and said, wow, that's a lot of stuff. And it is. And I think one of my favorite quotes historically was that treasury is not critical to the mission of what the company's doing. Treasury doesn't make donuts or coffee or spirits and wines or machines. But without the cash, the liquidity, the debt, the financing, basically the company doesn't do anything. And so it's so pivotal to company that it's just such a multifaceted profession.
Paul, you remind me of a story. So just very, very quickly, because a lot of people don't understand what treasury is, I find that even in my own house, about every 5 years or so, the kids kind of come to me, my wife will come to me and say, so somebody asked me what your dad does. What exactly do you do? Then you've got to explain these 16 silos of things that you're responsible for and how they're all kind of interconnected. So anyway, it's funny. I haven't thought of that in a while. So apologies.
I don't think any of my family know what I do, what the profession is either. But yeah. How about you, Yussuf?
Yeah, so my background was really from school, management accounting. So creating management reporting, those type of things. And I sort of when I graduated, I felt that I really like being in a treasury department, really, being close to the exchange rate, the interest rate, and all of that. I felt I was missing that when I was sort of doing the more management account, was sort of detached from the market. So I think, the reason why I think I've stayed this long in treasury is because of the dynamic nature of our industry, right? You have all type of, geopolitical challenges, market challenges taking place over time that affects the way you operate within a specific company. So I think that's the thing. Everything is so dynamic in this space.
Yeah. I think all three of us have experienced an awful lot of kind of opportunities, deals, pursuits, and kind of rollouts over the past few decades as well. I mean, I think one of the things it'd be interesting to chat about some memorable, funny stories, and it don't have to be funny; it could be just memorable. A couple I had as well that we had a treasury project that I did with a good friend of mine who was on my team, and we actually did this. We actually fixed a technology implementation or a treasury technology implementation for a client. It was going badly wrong. They were all working late nights to get it done. They had a time frame they had to work over, and they asked us to come and quote for it. And it's a mutual friend of Keith's and mine. And we went in there, we got it all done, and they were shocked that we actually got it done. And when we went live, the CFO took us all out for dinner, and he got up and actually, very emotionally actually, and he actually said, "You guys have been responsible for changing our lives." And he said, "You might not seem like that. It seemed like a technology project, but everybody here have got family, they've got wife, they've got kids, they want to get home and do stuff. But we've been working here till 9, 10 o'clock at night every night for the last 6 months because we had to get this thing done, and you guys came in and fixed it." And he was really quite emotional because now we can go home and we can spend time with our families, with our kids, everything else. And so you change lives. I mean, automating a lot of these processes, putting in treasury technology, and actually making it work actually really does change lives. So for me, that was a great moment of personal kind of achievement that he had an impact on people. I really enjoyed that.
Paul, it's really, really funny. Somebody asked me, how do you break a lot of these projects down and kind of get people to kind of go forward? What are their real goals? And one of the things that I always say, and you basically just said it, is they want to be able to go to their kid's soccer game on time. Now I realize that's an overgeneralization, of course, but a lot of times it breaks it down to that simple. I remember my treasury days, you're working till 8, 9 o'clock at night. I would say I missed more family things, events, celebrations actually in corporate than I did in fintech, even though I travel and do a lot of other things. just because of that, right? It's just people just eventually want to go home, live their lives, have a good, well-balanced family life. And I think, hopefully we enable a lot of that. I think that's a lot of it at the end of the day.
Technology has an impact, and that's why I've been addicted for so long. It really does have an impact, and you see an improvement in people's lives, quality of life.
Yeah.
And on the other side, I mean, from my own quality of life, being a pre-sales guy for quite some time as well, a lot of stressful times. Yussuf is pre-sales here at Trovata, and very often a client will send you an awful lot of scripts and stuff that they want to see in a workshop. They're always complicated. They're always overly complicated, to be honest. Where they're looking at aspirationally, can you do these things? So you're really challenging the system. And I always remember I had several workshops in a row, and it was tough to get them all done. And I actually flew to California on the Monday. The workshop was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and there was about 15 spreadsheets of information they wanted me to put into the system. And so I had to stay up every night and then keep on working through. So I actually didn't go to bed for 3 days. I turned up on the Thursday morning, and my boss actually said, "Paul, what are those squares on your face?" And I looked in the mirror to find out what they were. I'd actually fallen asleep on my laptop where the power battery was charging up. And I actually had a bunch of squares melted into my face just because of the fact that I'd fallen asleep trying to do this thing. And it was super, super stressful. But we won the deal. We got the deal. The client signed, and they rolled out the software. But if it's really high stress, but at the end of the day, the client's got to understand exactly what they're going to get out of a solution. And that's kind of where we've all come in to make sure we don't want to oversell anything. We want to make sure that, we show what the system can do, because you're going to be relying on it for 3, 4, 5, hopefully more years than that. So kind of just funny stories that I've kind of run into. The acquisition that we went through, we talked about on the last podcast. So, one of the things that we looked at to get into kind of treasury management capabilities is build it, partner buy, etc. And, I did an extensive search. I know most vendors globally, just because I just have to know. I'm inquisitive. I want to meet people, understand where companies are. And I met Alf through yourself, Keith. And, I saw that on your resume, and I thought, that's interesting. Let me ask Keith about that. Your comment. I'll leave it to you to kind of explain, but just give me a little bit about the DNA of financial sciences.
Yeah, I think the comment was financial sciences is the best application that kind of nobody's ever heard about. And I think it was something hopefully pretty close to that. And I think you mentioned the DNA of financial sciences and what it is, and the reason that I had joined there as well. You've got this group of people that whatever you want to call them, financial engineers, quants, software programmers, people that love math and software and finance and problem solving. And really the number one focus, which is very, very different from, the market itself, was never sales. It was never marketing. I mean, I would say the company probably had spent more time actually having no one in sales and marketing, literally no one, but had tons of people, in engineering and software development, things like that. Because at the root, the foundation, that's who the company is. It's being able to provide very, very deep, strong, well-written code to be able to solve very, very hard, complex problems. That's the root of the company. That's why the companies that ultimately have had as customers end up telling other customers, which is ultimately how the company has grown. That's how they've gotten the faith and commitment from all the customers that have been around for quite a while as well. And it really just goes back to that. It's just a hyper focus on producing quality, assuming that revenue is going to come. Hyper care, assuming again revenue will come. So it's that whole thing where the metrics maybe are a little bit different than in most organizations. It's all about the software. It's all about the client, and everything else will just work. And the company managed to survive that way for almost 40 years, which is certainly a real testament to the team.
Yeah, and indeed could have survived even longer. But
Yeah.
I think as fortune comes along, I mean, for Trovata, it was a perfect next step that we were looking to do, and we found financial sciences and Alf, and lo and behold, what a unbelievably complementary fit in terms of what we were looking to do. And you've built businesses in the US in the past yourself, yeah. I mean, you've worked on setting up a few kind of TMS vendors, business, etc. How did you get on at financial sciences first time round in terms of kind of building up the business?
Yeah, I mean, the first. So this was actually my second foray at financial sciences, and really just kind of restarting up. I think initially it was, hey, we've got a lot of great clients that are more in the debt, the trading, things like that. A lot of big banks, big corporations. And then the evolution, of course, was, where the puck, right? The whole Gretzky thing, right? Where the puck isn't. I think that opportunity was in TMS to really help them kind of build out that solution and kind of get things going. And then here, then had an opportunity to kind of come back and then really take a lot of the knowledge and the skills that I had around sales and marketing and building, processes and teams and things like that, and being able to kind of get out there to the market and doing that. And then the Trovata, acquisition was really just, quite frankly, it was a perfect match. I think all the things that Trovata is strong about, with data, AI, modeling, as well as, quite frankly, some of the capitalization that allowed us really to help fill in some of the things we maybe could have done better. There's really not much in the way of overlap. So it's been great for employees. It's been great for the product. I know myself and the financial sciences team is just been super excited about, how things have gone and some of the opportunities that we're getting involved in that, we just didn't have the capital to go out to the market in a way to be able to materially make an impact. But certainly we're doing that now. That's for
No,
sure.
absolutely. And the merging of the technology stack as well, which actually, is something that happens behind the scenes, which clients never really see, but is obviously of ultimate benefits as well. From Yussuf's perspective, so another kind of factoid about Yussuf as well is that I remember back in the day when I was interviewing Yussuf, I don't know, I can't remember when it was, maybe mid-20 teens. And I remember when I interviewed Yussuf with a colleague of mine, and the first question I asked is, tell me the relative merits and demerits of VAR, Monte Carlo simulations, historical VAR, or parametric VAR. And I thought, well, there could not possibly be a harder question that you could ask a potential interview candidate. And then Yussuf waxed lyrical for about 20 minutes on the relative merits and demerits. So I was told this guy's a great fit. We're working on a product that a lot of clients did that kind of analysis. And so Yussuf's a super smart guy. So, when we were looking at building the team here at Trovata, Yussuf is somebody I've known for years, and we needed a pre-sales person to come in and kind of manage that whole go-to-market look and feel, usability, relate to the client, translate what the client wants into how the system will operate, and streamline the solution. So I'd talked to Yussuf about a potential role, sight unseen. He'd not seen what we were going to do. So Yussuf, talk us through that process. Why did you join?
Yeah, I mean, Paul, as we were talking there, you sort of were saying this is more like one of the really, really advanced TMSs out there. It looks more like that. And I think that was enough for me to know that the system had the capabilities for that. Yeah, there were some few things, some tweaks here and there, but when I then actually saw the system, I think I told you, and this is also echoes what Keith was saying, when you see things like the bank fee analysis or how commercial paper is managed, it is to the nth degree. It sort of goes, I felt I've seen everything, right? I've demo from Finland all the way down to South Africa. So I felt like I've heard everything. But when I sort of saw the capability and how deep it went into specific area, I realized this was a system that, first of all, I was surprised I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it more. But now I understand the focus has sort of been different. So certainly very surprised by the depth of the capability. It's a very capable solution. So I feel very fortunate to essentially just be giving the keys there. All right, you go. And the system has everything I need there. So definitely a very positive surprise. And I basically just trusted your descriptions of it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And it was a big sigh of relief for me, I think, when, I think you joined, you'd already been here for 3 months, and you were working on the core kind of Trovata solution at the time, and looking at what we've done now, which is, for me, a game changer in the business as well, where you're looking at, our data lake, the ability to connect to the banks, pull in all of the bank data through whatever method you like, tagging that data, sorting it, grouping it, using AI. And I thought, wow, if we could do this stuff on the Treasury as well, this is just a game changer. It's use of greatest technology. There hasn't been anything new for such a long time in the Treasury world. And so to kind of refactor software into this AWS environment and release this functionality is just such a phenomenal opportunity. So imagine my relief when you got to share with you what the system looked like. And you said, I think it was something like, wow, I can't believe that I didn't know about the solution in the marketplace. So I was very relieved then, because obviously I'd enticed you out of a perfectly good job. And, it was a massive relief, just because of the fact that the opportunity to disrupt the market, we talked on the last podcast about the Hobson's choice. where if you're looking for a system, you were likely going to buy one of four in the North American market for several years now. So we truly get the opportunity now to disrupt that market and actually come in and do something new and different. I think, as you said, you'd not heard of it. Keith described it as the best system you'd never heard of. And I think our goal now and our role here is really to make it a system now that's on everybody's lips. Why? Because you've not seen it. You should see it. I think you'll be surprised when you do about how comprehensive the capabilities of the Trovata solution are.
And I think, Paul, I want to tag on to that in relation to the underlying platform, the underlying Trovata platform. I think that's another thing that just made this position so appealing is that you have this system with deep capabilities, but it now sits on this platform, big data platform, AI platform, which is really, I think, what the next generation treasury management solution needs. So I felt that those two things are a perfect match. So definitely one of the things that we're excited about.
Yeah. And it's something, again, I was at a client site yesterday, and I love nothing more than going to visit clients and talking to them about what they're doing. It's just great. You learn so much about what they're using the system for that you didn't design it to do. But, at the end of the day, necessity leads to invention, and clients kind of use what you've built to solve real world problems. And so I think from a pre-sales perspective, both you and I were both pre-sales, and you see you're presenting the system aspirationally and what it can do, but seldom do you get the chance to go back in and then look at how they're using it after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and then you realize how pivotal and central this bank connectivity, the data that you've got, the capabilities, really does feed so many different systems. It allows the company to operate, manage liquidity, etc. And so I was kind of down there talking to this client, and it was just very exciting. And I think one of the topics we got onto, which is the perpetual topic at every conference, is AI. One of the things that we're looking forward to rolling out is true AI. And Trovata's been synonymous with AI in the market, and we've really pioneered, use of these APIs to connect all of the data, use non-APIs like the Swift network host to host to consolidate and aggregate all of this data, but then use it meaningfully to generate outcomes. And AI, large language models, are that way to be able to, query vast amounts of data and produce something meaningful with plain English language. What if? And talking to the client yesterday, their complex debt profile, they've got securitizations, they've got all these different accounts that feed into certain amounts that they then securitize. And it's quite fascinating what AI can bring, I think, to the treasury environment, be it debt, credit, facilities, foreign exchange exposures, bank relationships. I think AI is going to really disrupt the market, and I think we're at the forefront of that. So it gives us this great platform in Trovata to kind of leverage that across the whole treasury platform as well. So very, very, very exciting. And everybody wants to do AI. So treasury is now really exciting because everybody wants to do AI. So it's the question I get mostly: what AI capabilities do you have? You ask the question, what would you like? And they say, I've got no idea. So I think, being that we've been around treasury for such a long period of time, I think we're able to help set this agenda of what can we do within treasury that's meaningful use of AI to really help, companies manage their liquidity, et cetera, et cetera. I think this has been a really good, fun time. Again, I've learned more about you, Keith, and Yussuf today than
A lot of fun. Thanks for having me on.
it was. And, I think it's been a great conversation. I mean, anybody watching this who know any of the three of us, we'd love to talk to you. If you have a solution right now, you're unhappy with it, you're dissatisfied, you're frustrated, we'd love to show you what we've got. Take it from me, Yussuf and Keith, that what we have is something that we're incredibly proud of. We're incredibly excited and proud of what we're going to be doing in the future as well with the technology stack. And how we're going to be able to change lives, and continue to change lives, I'd say, in the treasury profession with the use of this great technology. And in the next session, we're going to be talking with our CTO, Joseph. He's the main host of Fintech Corner. He just let me take over for this short series. But we'll have Joseph on and we'll talk about, hey, what does it mean in terms of the kind of joining up of these two solutions? Why are they so complementary? What does it mean from a technology perspective? How is that going to change moving forwards? How is it going to be non-disruptive to existing clients and completely seamless from a future client perspective? I always enjoy watching Joseph's podcasts and conversations. I think his title is CTO CPO, but I'd call him CTO CPO and futurist. And so he has this great vision of where things are going to go, and that's always exciting as well. So stay tuned for the next episode, and we'll kind of go through that technology side as well. Thanks very much, Keith. Thanks, Yussuf, and thanks for joining this podcast.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Thank you.